Hey guys, welcome to 9 to 5 Nerds with just Robert Swathwood today. Today is July 3rd, and the last issue of The Walking Dead came out. And I figured, I've never done a just me before, and I'll try to keep this short and sweet and keep the conversation going because I don't have anybody to talk to. The last issue came out today, and if you've listened to the podcast at all, or if you know me personally, you know that The Walking Dead has kind of been a big deal for me for the last, 16 years, I guess. I'll go back to when it first started. I read comics as a kid and in high school and stuff, but I had stopped for a long time. And I stopped in the comic book store, and I saw issue 4 of The Walking Dead. And I was like, "Oh, what's this? I like horror. I like stuff." And man, this book has meant a lot to me over the years. It's so weird to see it come to an end. But I started on issue 4. They had 4 and 3 there at SoCal Comics in San Diego, which is where I bought issue 193 today. And I went down the street because they didn't have any issue 2s, and I got issue 2, a second printing. And it was, June. And I was like, I can't read issue 2, 3, and 4 without reading 1. And so I go to Comic-Con, and there's a little table there with a few issues of The Walking Dead and a guy named Robert Kirkman there. And he's selling books, and super nice guy. And I was like, oh, yeah, of course. I bought the first issue from him for, I think it was $2.99. And he signed it, and that's where I started. And I've collected every issue month to month for 16 years. And it's so weird to think back at that time because I just turned 35 last week. And so 16 years would have put me at 19, which is the year I met my wife. So this would have been, I bought him in, June, and I bought the issue 1 from him in July. I met my wife, we started dating the October previous to that. We're celebrating our 13-year anniversary this year. I just thinking about how long the book's been with me, it's just crazy to think. And, the following year, I met Robert again, and he was a super, super nice guy then. And obviously you guys know he's been on this show 2 times, and he's been not only a good person to me, but, to my kids and my wife and my friends. I mean, he's come over and done the podcast. It's crazy. I mean, he doesn't have to do that stuff. He's just overly nice. And what's funny is, after meeting him a couple of years, he would talk to me and the wife, and then we had kids, and, he'd be like, "Oh, how's the wife? How's the kids?" And I'm like, "Oh, bullshit. This guy doesn't remember me, blah, blah, blah." And, I've been saying, I've been going and chit-chatting with him for 16 years. It's crazy. And just to think where my life was at before this book and how long it's been with me. And whatever the ups and downs were in my life, mostly ups, I love my life, but, month to month, this book was there. And I'm not a huge comic guy. I'm a 15 to 20 book month a guy, usually around 15, but I always walk through and see what's going on. But this book is always one that I've read month to month. And, after meeting him a couple years, I was getting something signed, and he asked me what I thought of Invincible. And I was like, you know what? I don't read Invincible. He's like, "What the fuck you mean you don't read Invincible?" And he handed me the first 2 hardbacks of Invincible, and I read that. And I was reading that month to month when it came out, month to month for years until it ended. My oldest son's middle name is Grayson. My youngest first name is Oliver. We've been my wife and I have both been big fans of Walking Dead and then Invincible, and you know, I I've loved this book for a long time. I've been all in. You know, I'm I was a big Tyrese fan in the beginning and big Rick Grimes fan, and those were my guys. You know, and Rick, I think, will go down as one of the most badass characters in comic book history. You know, I think maybe 10 and a half, 11 years ago, I messaged Charlie Adlard and I said, hey, man, you know, I'm really looking at getting a tattoo. You know, I really want a tattoo of Rick Grimes. Didn't expect to hear anything back. And I get a message back. He said, hey, what are you looking for? You know, I'm super busy, but I if you give me some time, I can get to it. And I was like, hell yeah. So, you know, I really like the way that Charlie draws trees. I've been a really big fan of the kind of negative space and the trees and stuff. So I said, you know, I really love your trees. You know, I want Rick, you know, axe in hand or hatchet in hand and that. And, you know, I think it was 4 or 5 months later, I got a piece from him of Rick walking out of the trees, 2 dead zombies at his feet, or walkers, and 2 coming from his side. And I had that tattooed on my left arm. You know, I take Rick Grimes everywhere I go, and I don't regret getting the tattoo for a second. And what was cool is, you know, it's not like Charlie lives anywhere close, but the first year at Comic-Con after I got my tattoo, he was there. And the tattoo ended up in the back of hardcover number 5. And Kirkman gave it to me and he signed it and said, what the fuck were you thinking? And they had a good laugh and it was funny. And, you know, I've really loved this book from the beginning. And, you know, we as fans didn't know it was ending until 3 days ago. You know, there were solicitations out for the next couple months, and which is crazy. You know, they made these fake solicitations, which is kind of cool. But, you know, it's like, I don't know if you guys have ever, and gals, I don't know if you all have ever watched a movie nowadays without watching trailers. I've kind of, for the smaller movies that I want to see nowadays, I don't watch the trailers. I feel like if you hear what something's about and if you hear it's good and it's going to be up your alley, it's kind of cool to go in with no expectations or so many trailers now, you know, you can almost see the whole story through a trailer, as Corey would say. But not knowing this ending was coming was nuts. It was done so well and so secretly, and they did such a good job hiding it, like they did with Die Die Die. You know, it just dropped. Nothing. Surprise. Here you go. Here you get. And I'll get to what I thought about the issue in a second. But you know, man, I can't believe it's over. I just 16 years, and I'm just a fan, man. I can't imagine what, you know, the people behind the scenes are. I mean, if you read Robert's kind of farewell thing at the back of this last issue, you could tell how emotional he was about it. It's been a big part of his life and a big part of his success, and I don't think you'll meet a nicer guy out there. That's the kind of guy that's going to sign autographs for you for hours and hours to make sure everybody gets their autograph. But man, from Rick to Negan to the governor to Glenn, you know, there's so many. It was such a rich group of characters, and it had that Game of Thrones vibe where you didn't know who was safe and who wasn't, and you know, you thought the whole time that Rick was safe, and, you know, spoilers, he wasn't. You know, I unfortunately had heard that he was dying before I got to the issue. Somebody posted it online at, you know, 9:30 in the morning on Free Comic Book Day. But, you know, you can't really get too upset over spoilers nowadays. But, you know, if you go back and you look at the series, and like Andrea had such a cool send-off, you know, everybody got to say goodbye and everybody got, you know, those last moments with her. Nobody got those with Rick. I thought it was so crazy that after everything he lived through and everything he went through, that, you know, he went out with a gunshot from a spoiled brat who just didn't know, you know, how to handle himself. and that Carl was the one that had to finish it. You know, he walked in on him the next day, and Rick was a zombie. But you know, not only have I grown as an adult as this book has been going on. You know, it's one of those constant things for the last 16 years that took me from 19 to 35, which are pretty, you know, those are the years that kind of cement who you are, and you're finding out who you are, and all that stuff. But I loved this book from issue 1 to issue 193. This last issue, there's a bit of a time jump in it, and it's done so well. There wasn't a window, a page of any part of this last issue that I didn't like. It ended so perfectly that I can't say anything bad about it. And reading the closing statements from him about how emotional he was, and you know, all the people that have helped him out along the way, and I don't know all those people. I've through this book and through my fandom for this book and these comics and stuff, I've got to meet a lot of cool people, man. I've got to meet all kinds of people through Skybound that have been just so nice to me and my wife and my kids. You know, all the people at the booth at Comic-Con, Sean, Brian, these guys have been they've treated me like friends. And, you know, we don't talk outside of I, you know, message them sometimes, but we don't talk outside of at a Comic-Con. We're not friends, but they treat me like we've been friends for years. And that's how Robert's always treated me and my wife and stuff. And just, I mean, we'll be fans of Skybound and Kirkman and all the work that those people over there are doing for as long as they're around. And, you know, I know Walking Dead was probably their biggest book. It had to be, but that company, you know, Skybound, they've been so nice to us, and they're putting out really quality books. If you're not reading, you know, a Manifest Destiny or Birthright or you know, we talked about Outer Darkness recently, and you know, Oblivion Song from Kirkman and Die Die Die. Those books are amazing books. Redneck's amazing. You should really be reading those books. And I didn't start this for an advertisement for Skybound. I just came on here wanting to talk about, you know, the beginning to end of how I came to this book and what it's meant to me. And, you know, my wife wasn't a comic book reader before this, and she's read every single issue of Walking Dead and Invincible and all the other books that I push her way because, you know, after not reading comics for like 5 years, this book is what got me back into it. And they used to call me the Walking Dead guy at the local comic book store because that's where I went to get my books. And that's all I got. And then, you know what, I was like, oh, you know what, I'm going to pick up this Hulk comic, or, you know what, I'm going to pick up this Image book. I mean, I can't remember what I was picking up at the time. And then I ended up, you know, I had to cut back eventually. I was getting so many books per month, and it's not exactly a cheap hobby, but I had to cut back. And like I said, you know, I'm a 15 book a month guy, and even on that I fall behind. But man, I love the industry so much, and I have this book to thank for it because it got me back into something that I fell in love with when I was a kid. And I know so many things that we're passionate about and so many things that are hobbies to us, you know, sometimes we put them down and we never pick them back up. And that's sad, you know. Sometimes, you know, you don't know if that's going to be the last time you enjoy something. You know, I read something somewhere where, you know, one of those days when you're out playing with your friends and you go home, you don't realize it, but that's the last time you're going to, you know, play with those friends. It's saying bye to Walking Dead is almost saying goodbye to a friend. It's been a constant for 16 years. And I'm just thankful for the book and Charlie and Robert and you know, Tony doing it at the beginning. I'm just thankful that it brought me back to something that I love so much. And and that is the world of comics. And as for this last issue, like I said a couple minutes ago, I can't say a single bad thing about it. This book was Rick Grimes and Carl all the way, and Rick Grimes may not have made it the whole way, but Carl did, and it was good to see that he had a family, and it's good to see the world that the Grimes built together. At the end, when Carl's reading the book to his daughter, you get kind of a scan across all the people that have been there through the years. Maggie, who's no Madam President, Judge Hawthorne. You get to see the guy that killed Rick Grimes still in jail. You could see Eugene, building that train, expanding the safe zone, expanding the world, like he knew he was going to do. And it's so weird. I didn't write it. I'm not involved in the book, and it's almost like saying goodbye to a friend. So, yeah, it's over. It said the end. It was emotional, and we all know, if you listen to this and you're listening right now, that I'm kind of an emotional guy. But it's just so strange. So many people put so much time into Game of Thrones, but man, I read 193 issues of this book, plus novels, plus video games, plus podcast episodes about the comic, about the show. I've spent countless hours involved in this universe, and it's just boom, it's done. And I'm not upset at all. I couldn't think of a better send-off for this book. I know it's a weird number to end on, 193, and if you look at the back, it has to do with those big fat books that they put out that are sitting up on my shelf. Since I had to, I guess one good thing for me is I don't have to buy special editions of this book and that book and all that stuff anymore. But this is it was a good send off for a great book, and I'm glad I got in as early as I did. I don't know if I've told this story before on here, but I'm a collector at heart, and I do love comic books. So, like I said earlier, I had a second printing of issue 2, and this was maybe, 8-9 years ago. I needed an issue 2 first printing. I had to have a first printing in my collection. So I walk the floor of Comic-Con, and I find a guy that has one, and it's $175, which is crazy to me because I've bought every other issue at list price. So I buy it for $175, and I go to get it graded and signed because I wanted to have it, sealed. And I take it to Robert, and this was just when the books were starting to really get, expensive. I think it was before the show started, so they were starting to, climb. And I was like, man, you wouldn't believe how much I paid for it. And he says, how much you pay for it? I said, $175. And he said, oh, and he opens it up and pretends to tear the cover off. And I was shitting bricks. For a second, I was like, oh my God, no. And he laughs and he signs it, and it got graded, and it was graded at 9.8, so it didn't damage it or anything at all. But what's funny is he told me later on, he has other issues of that. He could have just ripped it off and given me a copy that he had already. But man, could you even imagine? Like, you spent $175, and I guess people might be irritated at that. But like I said, the guy's been nothing but nice to me and my wife and my kids and my family. Man, I 2 years ago at the Skybound Insiders meeting at Comic-Con, there was a Rick Grimes pinata and a Negan pinata. And both my sons, they would have been 7 and 4 at the time, got to bust one of those pinatas, and I have videos of it. And it's funny seeing, my youngest, my 4-year-old, almost hit Robert Kirkman in the head with a bat while he's trying to break open this Negan pinata. But yeah, it's over, and I felt like it was one of these times where it needed to be just me talking and let you all know how passionate I was about this and how much I loved it and how sad it is to see it go. And some of you may think I'm stupid for being sad about a comic book ending, but I'm not upset at all. I'm sad that it's over, but it was a great book and it was a great send off, and I couldn't be happier with how it ended. I'm thankful for what it's brought me. I'm thankful for the people I've met through it, and I'm just, I can't imagine what the people involved are, because I'm just I'm just a fan. I'm not anybody of importance, and this is how much it means to me. I can't imagine how much it means to Robert and Tony and Charlie and all the people at Skybound that have, ended up with careers because of this book. So I'm sure there are a lot of people that are thankful for it, just like I am. If you ever listen to this, Robert or Charlie, I really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. The send off was very sweet, and thank you. I'd love to know what everybody else thought of the issue. So if you're listening to this, shoot me tag me on Twitter or send me a message or any of that stuff. Wow, yeah. Well, I don't know what else to say. I really love this issue. Issue 193, last issue. It was cool when I picked it up, and I had seen pictures of it online, but I didn't realize how fucking big it is. It is a really, really big issue with some really great artwork and just some fucking stellar writing. Yeah, that'll be it. Thanks for listening. I hope you all enjoyed the book as much as I did. And if you haven't read it, there's trades, there's hardcovers, there's everything. You can get it on Comixology right now on sale. And you should, if you haven't read it, you should really give it a read, because it is one of the better books that's come out over, I can't tell you how long. I've read a lot of fucking comics. So get out there and read it if you haven't. If you have, let me know what you think, because it's been an emotional roller coaster. I picked it up today, and I didn't want to read it right away, because I knew if I read it and I didn't have anything to talk about it or anywhere to talk about it, I wanted to talk about it immediately. So I set up the mic, read the book. Here I am. So that's it. So long, Walking Dead.